Hello and welcome to math. Today we're going to learn how to combine like terms and how to use the distributive property and combine like terms. All right, so let's go over combining like terms. So like terms must have the same variable or they can be a constant. And a constant is just a plain number by itself, like 5, -2, 3, a number without a variable. Okay, so how do I combine them? Well, we add or subtract the coefficient, which is the number in front of the variable, and we keep the variable the same. So if we look at this example here, I have 10x minus 5 minus 2x plus 7. So what are my like terms? Well, they have to have the same variable. So I can see I have 10x and minus 2x are the same. Remember, the sign in front stays with that number because it's going to tell you how to combine it. So we do, if I can combine that, 10x minus 2x, that gives me 8x. And then -5 plus 7, these are just constants, they're just numbers, I can combine those. This would be -5 plus 7 gives me a +2. So we have a plus there. And that is how we can combine like terms. All right, so let's do one together. Let's see here. I have 6x plus 10 plus 2x. What do I have in common? Well, I see I have a 6x and I have a plus 2x. They both have an x, so I can combine these two. 6x plus 2x gives me 8x. And now I combine those. So what's left over? Well, I have a 10. 10 does not have an x, so I can't combine it with this. So I just bring it down. It'll be plus 10. All right, let's try number 2. I have 6x plus 30 plus 2x. Well, I have 6x and that plus 2x. I can combine those because they both have an x. 6 plus 2 gives me 8, so that will give me 8x. And what's left over? I have this plus 30. Well, that plus 30, it does not have an x, so I can't combine it. So I'm just going to bring it down, and it's going to be 8x plus 30. All right, let's try number 3. Number 3, I have 2x and 2x. These are both x's, so I can combine those, and that'll give me 4x. So we combine those. Let's see what else I have. Well, I see I have an a. There's no other a's, so I can't combine that with anything. So I'm just going to bring down that plus a. And then that's gone. So now I have that plus 20. Can I combine that with anything? No, there's no other just numbers, so I just bring that down. And that's my final answer. Number 4, I have a 4x and I have a minus 4x. They both have an x, so I can combine them. 4x minus 4x gives me 0. So these kind of just cancel out, and all I'm left with is that 10. And I can't combine that with anything because it doesn't have an x. All right, 5, let's see, that's what I got here. I got a 6x, and I also see a minus 3x. I can combine those because they both have an x. 6x minus 3x gives me 3x. And what's left over? I see I have a plus 11 and a minus 5. Well, those are just numbers, so I can combine those. A positive 11 minus 5 gives me a positive 6. All right, and then number 6, I have x and I have a minus 2x. Those are both x's, so I can combine those. X is the same thing as 1x, so 1 minus 2 will give me -1x. And I still have that 12 that I can't combine with anything because there's no other just numbers. -1x is the same thing as -x. So you could see it as -x plus 12, and this is most likely how you'll see it in algebra. Okay, so that is how we combine like terms. They have to have the same variable, or they can just be numbers, like in this case, plus 11 and -5. These are constants, they're just numbers, so we can combine those because they both have the same variable of not having a variable. They both don't have a variable. Okay, and that is how we combine our like terms. All right, so let's review distributive property. Distributive property means when I have parentheses and I can't solve what's inside of it, like this x plus 3 I can't do because I don't know what x is. That means I have to get rid of my parentheses by using the distributive property, which means I take that number on the outside and I times it to the stuff on the inside. So 4 times x would give me 4x, and 4 times 3 would give me 12. It's a positive 12, so I'll put a plus 12. All right, so if I was going to distribute this, 2 times 3x would give me 6x. This 2 times 3 is 6. And 2 times a -5. This sign in front stays with that number. So a positive 2 times a -5 will give me a -10. All right, and then we have this one. -2 times 6x will give me -12x. Because a negative times a positive is a negative. And now -2 times this -4. Well, a negative times a negative gives me a positive, and 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so that is important to know, the distributive property there, because we're going to need to know how to use that to combine like terms and distribute. Okay, so if you ever see something like this where it has parentheses, we always have to get rid of those parentheses first. And the way we do that is that we do that by using the distributive property. just like how we did up here. Okay, so they did -2 times 3x. -2 times 3x will give me, what's that, -6x. And then -2 times a -6 gives me a +12. Okay, but on this example, I have this +4 after it, right? So that means now I can combine my like terms. So what do I have in common here? What can I combine? Well, I see I have a 6x, and there's no other x's, so I can't combine that with anything. So I'm just going to bring that over here. But I can combine this 12 and this +4. 12 plus 4 will give me 16. A positive, so plus 16. Okay, so how do we do this? We got to distribute, and on this example, we distributed -2 to the 3x, and we distributed it to the 4. And then after we distributed it, we combined our like terms. Okay, so that is how you do distributive property and combining like terms together. All right, so let's do another practice one down here. Let's do this down here. So I have parentheses, I got to get rid of it. So I take the number touching the parentheses, and I'm going to multiply it to the stuff inside. 9 times -2 is -18, and that 2 had an x, so that x is going to stay with it. 9 times 5 is 45, so I'm going to write plus 45. And then I still have this -3, so I'm going to bring that down. All right, so then I want to think to myself, are there any like terms? And there are. There's a plus 45, and there's a -3. They're both just numbers, so I can combine those. 45 minus 3 will give me a positive 42. So I combined those two together and gave me 42. And I still have this -18x. I just can't combine it with anything, so I just bring it down, and that's my final answer. I can't do anything else. All right, so let's try this one. I have a -3. I got to get rid of these parentheses, so I'm going to use distributive property. -3 times 4 is -12. -3 times x is -3x. And then I still have that plus 5. So then I got to think to myself, is there any like terms that I can combine? And I can combine this -12 and I can combine this +5. Well, a -12 and a +5, if I can combine those, that will give me a -7. All right, so then what's left over? I have this -3x. Well, that -3x, I can't combine with anything because it has an x, and this doesn't. So then that is my final answer. All right, let's do 2 more practice ones. All right, I have 4 plus 2 parentheses, -2x plus 8 close parentheses. So I have to get rid of those parentheses. So I take the number on the outside, multiply it to the stuff on the inside. So the 2 is touching the parentheses, so I have to distribute first. I cannot do 4 plus 2 first. I have to distribute. Think about order of operations, stuff like that. You have to do parentheses first, and you have to multiply before you can add. 2 times -2 gives me -4. And that -2 had an x, so I'm going to keep an x with it. 2 times a +8 will give me a +16. And then now I can bring down this 4. All right, so now I think to myself, is there anything I can combine? And there is. I can combine this 4, and I can combine this 16. 4 plus 16 gives me a +20. +20. So I combine those two to get 20. And what's left? I'm left with this -4x. And I can't combine that with anything because that has an x and everything else doesn't. So that's just going to stay -4x plus 20. All right, last example. I'm going to take the number on the outside. And remember, the sign in front stays with that number. So really, this is a -6 that I'm going to multiply to this stuff here. So -6 times -4 will give me a +24. A -6 times a +2 gives me a -12. And then that 2 had an x, so I'm going to keep an x with it. And I can bring down this x that was up here. Okay, so now I think to myself, what can I combine? Well, I can combine this x with this -12x. X minus 12, this is really a 1, remember? 1 minus 12 gives me -11. So I have -11x. That's what I got when I combine these two things. And what's left over? I'm left with that +24. And I can't combine those because that +24 does not have an x. So that is my final answer. Okay, so that is how we distribute and combine like terms. When you have parentheses, you have to get rid of those parentheses first. And the way we do that is use the distributive property. And then after we use the distributive property, then we can look for our like terms, and then we add or subtract the coefficients, the numbers in front of them. And that's how we simplify our expression. Okay? If you ever have any questions on this, please ask a teacher, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye!